Welcome, everybody. Tuesday, December 5th. John Aravosis here with the Aravosis Report. Coming to you live from Chicago. We're going to talk about the latest news from Ukraine and Israel-Gaza, as always, and other news, except there is no other news today. So those are the two big stories we're going to brief on, get your guys' questions, fill you in on what's going on, etc. Let me get TikTok rolling on my iPad first. You're on my computer, just so you know. Go live. 1 sec here. And then we'll get started maybe in a minute or so. If you would, introduce yourselves while there we go, TikTok's rolling. While we're waiting for folks to join us, I like to take a minute just because it takes a second for people to get the notification on TikTok and YouTube and elsewhere. So there. Don't do it. Oh, okay. I thought Callum Callum likes to message me like 1 minute after I should have started and say, "Where are you?" So I thought he was messaging me. I was gonna slap him. Hey, Boppo. Hey, guys. How are we doing today? Hey, Manda. Oh, boy. Yeah, what day is today? Tuesday. We went to a really nice Christmas park thing. Thank you, Big Hawk. One of the local suburbs in Chicago does this beautiful Christmas thing with like the park all lit up and everything. I mean, really stunning though. Actually, I'll show you really quick. Absolutely stunning. I meant to put a video or two on TikTok and I didn't, but I still will probably. But it's really nice. It's just a beautiful kind of, let me see this. I'm going to turn the volume down so YouTube doesn't get upset about the music, because it always gets upset on YouTube about the music. 1 moment here. Where is this? Oh, this gives you a decent little view. But you can see like how, I mean, it's just like this is like one little portion of the park here. I'll show you guys next. It's just like one small portion of the park. It's huge, this place. And they just go nuts with the lights. I'll show you guys now. Let me scroll back here. Chip. There we go for you all. But like I said, they go crazy with the lights throughout the entire park, and it's just wonderful. We're going to start in a second, guys. I'm just waiting for folks to join us on TikTok and YouTube. Thank you, Succeed. But imagine an entire park like a city block, and the entire park has this many lights. It's absolutely just crazy stunning. You can see like they continue in the distance too. It's just, anyway, hard to tell. The suburb is called Lombard. It's a west suburb of Chicago. I mean, I'll show you a few more while we're waiting, but it'll give you a set. This is Mom in her little chair, but the entire park is like this though. I mean, it's again, you almost can't get a sense looking at the pictures, appreciating like how crazy it is. It really is. It's like one of the most beautiful parks that I've seen of Christmas stuff. It's just, where's the last little one here? It's like it's out of control. I mean, in a good way, out of control, but out of control. Yeah. I mean, last little one of the gang of us, but you get the sense. Like I said, thank you. Who was that with the Shane? I'm showing the Christmas park we went to last night in the Chicago suburbs. That is just like, oops, I'll turn it on anyway, you get the idea. It's crazy. It's crazy. Anyway, welcome, folks. I will begin now. John Aravosis here with the Aravosis Report. Welcome to you live from Chicago, where I'm hanging out for the next month. The way the show works is I go through the latest news, and thank you, adventurers, and then you guys pose questions. And Martin, thank you for the gift as well. And Shane, typically, well, the way the show started at the very beginning 2 years ago, I was covering Ukraine and the war in Ukraine. That's still going on. But there's news in other places. So I started covering Israel and Gaza too, because it's related, war in the region, and occasionally American news. But as the election approaches, American election, which is next November in a year, I will be certainly doing more election news as well, because it's important. And I think it's important to cover that stuff. So the way this works is I will go begin to cover the news. We'll start with Ukraine, then we'll move over to Israel. Typically, I do questions the second half of the show. It's always possible that I may see one of your questions on the screen in the meantime. Thank you, Pedro. Sometimes I do jump in and just grab a question if I see it, but I do have like a little script of news written out. Thank you, LWD and Chazak and Pedro. So I don't always do questions at the first half, but I will during the second half. But if you want to help my work, and I very much appreciate it, because I do this full time and I do it for free. And I always say, I will continue to do it for free, but if you've been watching for a while, you can afford to help. And if you like the work I do, please consider supporting me, because this is not a hobby. This is what I do full time. And in order to do it full time, I got to pay the bills. And the way I pay the bills is by your guys' gifts as well as memberships and other things. Thank you, Ellie. So please do keep the gifts coming. It literally keeps me going. So thank you, guys. All right, let's start with Ukraine. Thank you, Magical. Today is day 647 of Vladimir Putin's special 3-day military operation. We are finally launching a new fundraiser. So we do fundraisers not for me, but for the Ukrainians. And this time, with Christmas coming around the corner, we are raising money for a children's hospice in Ukraine. This is a children's hospice that we helped last year, and we're helping them again this year. Vlad reached out to them, my friend in Ukraine, and we are collecting money for them. 100% of the money will go to the hospice. Not only do I not get a portion of the money, I'm not even touching the money. You guys will send donations directly via my friend Vlad in Ukraine, and Vlad's giving 100% to the hospice. Specifically what we're raising for, we want to raise $15 per child. Now, a hospice, you guys know, hospices are for people who are basically terminally ill. It doesn't mean you're going to die in the next 3 days. In America, a lot of hospices are like a 5-day thing. It doesn't necessarily mean that. Our president, former president, Jimmy Carter, he's been in a hospice since February. So it can be a longer term thing, but for people who basically are heading towards death or a terminal illness, and they're no longer getting treatment, but they're getting what's called palliative care, which means, painkillers, things like that. In any case, we're helping a hospice for children. Exactly, but it's months and not years. Perfect way of describing it, what Ashley said. So these are children who are terminally ill, but who still have time left. And what we're going to get them is $15 a child. We're going to raise for about 200 kids or so. We are going to get them gifts for the kids, including toys, including, as Vlad wrote, a small sweet gift, meaning some small little sweet of some kind, a little, candy or something. And listen to this. The hospice asked if we could help them raise money for an exercise bike for the entire hospital, for the entire hospice. The bike cost $300. I mean, I heard that and I was like, okay, I think we can do that. So our goal is a little bit more than we usually ask you guys. We're setting a loftier goal for $3,000. As much as you can give is great. Every $15, thank you, Mustard, every $15 gets us one kid covered with, as we said, toy, candy, and then portion of it will go for this exercise bike for all the kids. So if you can help, I appreciate it. Actually, Vlad did. I will show you really quick. He sent me, I asked him if he had pictures he could share, and he did. Because, with Ukraine, you always want to be careful sharing stuff because of security, but he said it wasn't a problem. So this is, I will show you really quick. Oop, where is this? Come on, guys. Oh, I've got Callum's pulling up. Callum, you did not send me that. Here's Vlad's. So this is during the summer because it's a little warmer, but this is the hospice with all the kids. So you can see. But this is obviously summertime because right now it's freezing in Ukraine. That's not too bright. You guys can see too. Okay, there you go. Hospice with the kids. Okay, so the way you help out is I'm doing the news in a second, guys, but we're raising money for a children's hospice in Ukraine to get them Christmas gifts. The way we do it, you will send the money directly to Vlad via PayPal. On TikTok, go to my profile, look for the Linktree link, which is the URL in my profile, click it, and it'll bring up a list of links. The very first one it's self-explanatory. Thank you, Mustard. It literally says, thank you, Mustard. It literally says we're raising money for the children's hospice, and it gives you Vlad's PayPal info. You can't click and go through because it's complicated with Ukraine. You'll go to your PayPal. You'll type in Vlad's PayPal address, his email, and donate that way. Thank you, Nicholas. For you guys, I will put Vlad's. You can either go to aravosis.com for you all on YouTube. Aravosis.com has my links. It's the very top one. Or I will give you Vlad's PayPal. That is Vlad's PayPal right there. All right, guys, I'm going to get going. If you don't have PayPal, we're not doing it. It's too hard because if I accept, first of all, I don't want to accept the money, right? I feel more comfortable, especially when it's something like this where 100% is going to the kids, to Ukraine. I don't want to touch the money. It's complicated. It's for tax reasons. It's complicated. It just, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to touch it. And the only way for Ukraine is using PayPal. The other services don't work for Ukraine, unfortunately. So I'm sorry, guys. It's got to be PayPal. And if you're American, all I got to say is you need PayPal. because PayPal is now ubiquitous. You don't, if you're, I'm going to give you that lecture as a tech guy. If you're American, you've got to get a PayPal account. There's no excuse. I would say if you're European too, if you're allowed. Thank you, Carla. At least in the US, PayPal is required really for sharing money. Canadians too. Yeah. Okay. You guys, I was thinking Canada probably as well. All right, guys, let me get rolling here. So today's day 647, like I said, of Putin's 3-day military operation. Zelensky was supposed to meet today, I'm assuming virtually, with U.S. senators to talk about the fact that, they're running out of money and it's getting really important at this point. He canceled at the last minute. It's not clear why. I'm not sure what the deal is here. Actually, sorry, you know what? Poppy just raised a great point. Poppy, I keep forgetting this. The quick thing about the fundraiser, you don't need a PayPal account to pay via PayPal. Typically you don't. Poppy, for this one, you actually do, I think, don't you? If you're, okay, I'm going to leave this out there, and Poppy, maybe you can tell people on TikTok. Because he's in Ukraine, Vlad can't set up one of those pages with a link and everything else. It's just Vlad's PayPal email address. That's it. Can people donate to Vlad's PayPal email address via PayPal without logging in is the question. That's the problem. So if you can answer that for folks on TikTok while I'm doing this, I would appreciate it. So anyway, Zelensky was supposed to go and at least talk to the U.S. Senate today. I'm assuming virtually he canceled. I'm not sure why he canceled. It also might have been, by the way, Senator Schumer, the Democratic leader in the Senate, said that Zelensky canceled. That doesn't mean Zelensky canceled. Right? It may be that Schumer, for some reason, thought it was better not to have Zelensky speak today. And rather than Schumer saying, I asked him not to speak, he said, oh, Zelensky, the president, was busy, right? So something's going on, though, about why they didn't want Zelensky to speak to the Senate today, giving a really urgent appeal about funding. A little more news. Following negotiations mediated by Qatar, depending how you want to pronounce it, a Middle Eastern country that's been negotiating the hostage prisoner exchange between Israel and Hamas. They also have been negotiating the release of the children that Russia kidnapped from Ukraine. 6 children, Ukrainian children, were released today to their families. Just to remind you, unfortunately, Russia has kidnapped, the estimates are anywhere from several thousand to 20,000 Ukrainian kids. Thank you, Courtney. As a matter of policy, the Russian troops went into Ukraine, and however, I don't think we know this comes from Putin, but we don't know the exact orders. But we know it comes from Putin because Putin was indicted for war crimes because of this, okay? And this is the war crimes indictment that Putin got, was because he has an actual policy of Russians going into Ukraine and stealing their children, bringing them to Russia and making them Russian. And they did this. A top person in the Ukrainian parliament, Russian parliament the other day, adopted a Ukrainian baby, and I believe changed the birth certificate, and is claiming now that the baby's a Russian. So the kid will never know he's actually a Ukrainian who was kidnapped. Anyway, 6 of them got returned. This is cute. My dog is literally on the side of my chair and gave a little, like she wanted to be pet. Sasha, why don't you come up on the chair? This is much nicer because then I can do my show. Come on up, all right? Sasha, of course, wants to play because her timing is impeccable. Come on up. There you go. Okay. I always give you guys a quick peek because it's easier. There she is. Oh, thank you for the gift there. There she is. She's kind of looking up. She's rolling. She's laying down. All right, you got the Sasha for you. You guys, it's a little hard. Well, maybe. Oh, there you can. Oh, there you go. You can see her right there. All right, there we go. You can see Sasha. All right, let me keep going. Sasha did not get settled under the tree. No, she finally gave up. Thank you, Alex. Thank God. And after she knocked Joseph over, that was sort of it. I think God intervened. A little more here. Some good Ukrainian strikes overnight. Very good. And Ukrainian forces reportedly struck several Russian military facilities in Crimea, occupied Crimea, using drones. Among them, a marine oil terminal. About 30, there are about 30 fuel tanks on the territory of the facility, which provide fuel for the Russian military. The damages was quite significant, reportedly. They also hit a radar system in eastern Crimea, a military helicopter parking lot, a radar complex, and a control system for an anti-aircraft missile unit. So sounds like the Ukrainians did a lot of damage, which is good, with an attack in Crimea. So that's, in other words, my point here is, which I think is an important point to keep in mind, even though the war seems to be kind of like this, right? I don't know if it's a stalemate, whatever we want to call it. Thank you, Alex. But not a lot is happening in terms of territory. I mean, the Russians, for example, in the last few weeks, they advanced a little bit, like between Advivka and Donetsk or whatever. I forget the town. Is it Marinka, I think it's called, or something? They advanced a little bit, right? But there's not a lot of movement. But what is happening is there are still attacks going on that are quite significant. And this is an example of Ukraine making an attack in Crimea that actually caused some significant damage to the Russians, which is good. Politico, this was interesting. Politico reports that President Macron of France has invited Orban, what is it, Orban, however they pronounce his name, of Hungary, the leader of Hungary, to come to Paris to talk about Ukraine joining the European Union. Now, Orban has come out and said he doesn't want it. Now, Orban, okay, keep in mind, Orban, far right, wannabe dictator, not one yet, but wants to be a dictator. Hungary is a member of the European Union. Hungary is the member of NATO. So they can basically be a pain in the ass in both institutions, not just because he's a far right wannabe dictator, but he's also a Putin crony. Big friend of Putin, big ally of Russia, hates Ukraine. Hates Ukraine for I think a lot of reasons, including he's a neighbor, but also hates them because he's a big Putin crony, right? He's doing it on behalf of Russia. Well, the European Union was going to discuss Ukraine joining NATO, which, by the way, is a long process, right? Like, no one thinks this is going to happen for 7 or more years, but it's a long process. And the European Union had it on their agenda in December, I guess this month, and the Hungarians are saying, take it off the agenda, or we're going to like veto. I think they won't even allow the agenda to come up or something. So Macron has invited Orban to go to Paris to discuss what they can do, I guess. Basically, I think Orban, just like Erdogan in Turkey, he wants a bribe. It may not be a personal bribe, but he wants a bribe in terms of giving his country a lot of money. Frankly, he may want a personal bribe too. But I think that's what's going on. So we'll see what Macron can pull. Good of Macron to try at least, which is good. What else we got? Poland. Okay, yeah, I got asked a story today. We've got a Discord community. It's discord.aravosis.com. If you're on Discord, just Google my name and I'm sure it comes up. But somebody was asking in the Discord community, it was Evie, I think, was asking in the Discord community today about a report out of Poland about Russia's ability to attack NATO. And let me just read you this from Sky News. Poland's National Security Agency has warned an attack on NATO by Russia could come sooner than anticipated. The head of the National Security Bureau pushed back on a German think tank's estimate that Russia could directly attack the West in as little as 6 to 10 years. The quote from the poll is, if we want to avoid war, NATO countries on the eastern flank, which means Poland, Baltic states, etc., should adopt a shorter 3-year time period to prepare for confrontation. Now, when I read this story, what I took this as wasn't, we think Russia's attacking in 3 years, we're attacking NATO. I read this as in as little as 3 years, or as few as 3 years, Russia will be capable of attacking NATO. They're not capable of attacking NATO right now because they've been decimated in the war in Ukraine. They've lost a lot of men. They've lost a lot of weapons, right? They've got to build it back up again. The German think tank is saying they believe it'll take Russia 6 to 10 years to get to the point where they can pose a threat to NATO again. The Poles are saying we ought to be smart and basically plan on 3 years and be smart about it. And what they mean, by the way, in terms of plan, is we've got to develop our weapon systems. We've given a lot of weapons to Ukraine, right? Thank you, Critter. We've got to build more of them. And rather than think, okay, let's figure out how much we need over the next 6 years, Poland's saying we ought to be thinking how much we need over the next 3 years. Let's be conservative about it. So I don't see this as a great threat from Russia in 3 years. Because in 3 years, by the way, Russia will still lose a war with NATO. If it's a nuclear war, Russia dies and we die. So they're not going to do nuclear. If they don't do nuclear, Russia's not going to win, right? NATO's going to win. So I do not see this as, oh my God, in 3 years, NATO's attack or Russia's attacking. I do see it as, in 3 years, maybe Russia will have the capability to be a pain in the ass again, and we should be prepared for it, which is a smart idea. Now, in terms of Russia being a pain in the ass, they're threatening Latvia again. Now, Russia's been threatening a lot of their neighbors or close neighbors. I forget which, whether it's, I forget one of you guys. It might even be Latvia. Is Latvia the one? Latvia, oh no, Latvia has, I believe, the top part of Latvia has a border with Russia and the bottom is Belarus, right? and it's Lithuania that doesn't border Russia, and Estonia borders Russia. I think I'm right on this. But the Russians have been threatening everybody. Those 3 Baltic countries, Finland, Poland, everybody who's close enough to the Russian border, they're threatening. These are all NATO members, by the way, okay? Well, Russia can't actually attack them. They can't attack them because they're NATO countries, right? If they attack these guys, no, I know where it is. I asked whether it bordered Russia. I know where it is. 2 of the 3 border Russia. Thank you, Chris. The Russians like to kind of freak out the NATO countries. That's what I thought on the East. Thank you. That's what I was asking. Appreciate it. They like to just kind of freak them out. They know they can't attack them, right? So Poland, Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, Finland, they know they can't attack them because they're NATO countries. If they attack them, literally, they will be declaring war on us, on the United States, on the UK, on Norway, all the big militaries of NATO, right? They can't do that. Russia would lose. So they basically are trying to freak them out. Remember how we talked about recently how the Russians have been basically letting a bunch of migrants into Russia, and they're throwing them at the Finnish border. They're basically taking people from, Syria. I forget if it's Somalia was the other one. It was Syria and, I'm forgetting, guys. Where was it? There were 3 of them. I'm already forgetting the 3 countries. Syria was one of them. And they're taking them and basically just throwing them at Finland because they know that migrants are a political issue in Europe, right? So if you get more migrants coming in, it causes more turmoil. Now, of course, Russia can't attack Finland because it's NATO. Well, they're doing this to Latvia. Now, listen to this. Putin today said Latvia would face repercussions inside their own country due to Riga's policies regarding the Russian minority. Now, Latvia has almost 24% of Latvia's population of 1.8 million belongs to a Russian minority. They've been passing amendments because there's also a lot of Russians living there that are not. Now, here's the question, actually. If anybody's Latvian or maybe in the region, what the story did not make clear is what percentage, 24% of Latvia's population is a Russian minority, but is that 24% of Latvia's citizenship, or are most of those people kind of, living there? In America, you'd say like a green card. A lot of these guys are not Latvians, because what I'm going to tell you next gets to that point. But I'm curious what percentage of the Russian minority or the Russian speakers in Latvia, thank you, Sherry, are actually Latvian citizens, because I'll bet you a lot of them are not. Thank you, Courtney. But does anybody know the percentage? I'm just curious. Thank you, Cassandra. Please keep the gifts coming, guys. I appreciate it. The gifts help me pay the bills and keep doing the show, so I appreciate it. Listen to this. The Latvian parliament recently passed an amendment in 2022 tightening residency rules for who is that? Cassandra and Ellie and Courtney, thank you. Recently passed an amendment to tighten residency rules for Russian citizens, in response to Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Russians living in Latvia are now required to apply for permanent residence and pass a basic level Latvian language test. Latvian authorities sent letters to over 3,000 Russian citizens telling them they would have to leave Latvia as they failed their test. Also, a law passed in September aims to phase out, was that Courtney and Mustard? Thank you, guys. Aims to phase out, Russian and other minority languages as a language of instruction in schools by 2025. So what you got going on here? And this is what matters here, Latvia was a part of the Soviet Union. Thank you, Martin. Soviet Union was the big, nasty communist dictatorship pretty much run by Russia, really, that existed from like 1917 to 1991. Horrific place. I visited. Horrific police state. I mean, your nightmare of a totalitarian state was the Soviet Union. Thank you, Andre. And they subjugated a lot of other countries in the area. Latvia was one of them. Ukraine was another one, by the way. They basically ate their neighbors. They kidnapped their neighbors, in essence, held them hostage, just like they did Europe, by the way, half of Europe, and turned them as well into dictatorships, right? Thank you, Jesse. Well, the Latvians, like the Ukrainians and other people in the area that were part of the Soviet Union, they're now still de-Sovietizing themselves, right? Because they were they didn't have a choice. I mean, the Russians ran them. What do you think happened? They had to make Russian one of their official languages, right? They had to let these people live there. Well, they're finally saying, you know what? For example, why do we have to make Russian one of our official languages that we use for schools and stuff, right? We're Latvia. We're no longer a Russian puppet, not even a puppet. Thank you, Running. They're not even a puppet. They were, and thank you, Rock, for the little crown. They were literally a hostage of Russia, and they're saying no more, right? Well, the Russians don't like it because Russia, again, think of Russia and Ukraine, right? Thank you, adventurers. The Russians think they're 10 feet tall. They think they're better than everybody, right? So if you are suddenly going to not make Russia one of your official languages, you're the enemy. Oh, the word they use, they did it again with Latvia today. You're Russophobic. It's like you're homophobic, you're Russophobic. Anytime you say anything negative about Russia. So Putin basically threatened Latvia today and suggested either Russia might invade, because here's the thing. This excuse about, oh my God, we're going to come and rescue our ethnic minority, that's the excuse Russia used to invade Ukraine. So Putin is telling Latvia we might invade. Now, it's bullshit. They're not going to invade. Latvia is a member of NATO. And I'll tell anybody who's Latvian out there right now, Putin invades and you're going to war with us, the United States. So he's not invading Latvia, but he wants to scare the hell out of them because this is what he does. He just messes with people, right? That's the first thing. The second thing is, who else threatened their neighbors by saying, you know what? You've got my minority in your country. Thank you, Karen. And you're not treating them well. So I think I need to invade. Adolf Hitler. This comes from World War II. The whole notion of our people, our ethnic people are in your country and we must protect them. This goes back to that. So Putin's trying to screw with the Latvians, basically. Again, you know how I always tell you guys that pretty much everything the Russians say is a lie, and everything the Russians say a lot of it tends to be psychological warfare. They're trying to just freak everybody out. So, they're trying to freak the Latvians out. Last little story from Ukraine. Oh, this was good, from the UK. The UK will support Ukraine financially next year at the same level it has been, or even ahead of what they've done in the past, said Cameron, who's the foreign minister, whatever you call him, whatever the Brits call him. I never know all these different names in different countries, but you get what I mean. The foreign minister in Britain, the Secretary of State, whatever the hell he is there. So the foreign secretary, that's what you call him. I knew this wasn't what it was in Britain, foreign secretary, but that's good. That's good because especially with the U.S. being kind of wishy-washy, it's good for the Brits to make clear they're going to keep supporting Ukraine. All right, let's switch to Israel and Gaza. As always, guys, I keep forgetting to do a reset because one of the things you do when if you do a lot of radio, they teach you when you're hosting radio, like every 5 minutes on radio, by the way, or so, which I would never do with you guys, you're supposed to reiterate who you are because you've got new people dropping in and leaving all the time. And if you think about it, especially with less on YouTube, I think, but especially on TikTok, people are kind of checking you out for half a minute, 2 minutes, and they don't know who you are because they didn't watch the beginning of the show. So really quick, I'm John Aravosis. This is my show, the Aravosis Report. I talk about the latest from the war in Ukraine, and lately I talk about the latest from Israel and Gaza as well. I have a background in foreign policy. Take your guys' questions in the second half. Let's get rolling. And as always, like I said, please do keep the gifts coming, guys. Not kidding. It makes a big difference in me being able to do this work because I do this full time, basically reporting on the two wars, TikTok, YouTube, etc. Thank you, Napoleon. This is my full-time job, and your guys' gifts help me pay the bills to keep doing it, so thank you. All right, let's go with Israel now. So the latest on Israel and Gaza, quick sip of water. Interesting day. Now, I will tell you to some degree, thank you, Timothy, kind of like the Ukraine stuff, I think a lot of the nitty-gritty is boring, to be honest, because the nitty-gritty, thank you, Andre, the nitty-gritty you can sort of get in the papers. To me, much more interesting is kind of where things stand, where they're going. And Israel's intensifying the battle in Gaza, going in southern Gaza, but the U.S. is intensifying the criticism, which is very interesting. Thank you, Karen, for those. Lots of gifts there, which is interesting. Okay. Let me get to some of the details here. More from Karen. Thank you, Karen. Israeli military is encircling the city of Khan Yunis in southern Gaza. Just a quick recap. Remember, Gaza is a territory, like basically a rectangle. Israel's invaded like the top third because there's two major cities. Gaza City in the north and this Khan Yunis, however you pronounce it, in the south. And the Israelis went to the north part. They've been trying to basically wipe out Hamas. Hamas is the terrorist group that runs Gaza and invaded Israel on October 7th. So invaded and killed 1,200 people, big massacre. So the Israelis moved in and now have invaded the top third. And the goal is to basically take Hamas's weapons away, take them out of power, and actually just go and kill. I mean, honestly, kill them. I mean, really. I mean, we're sort of using euphemisms in a way by saying take them out of power. It's not just take them out of power. They want to kill them, kill Hamas entirely, so that Hamas basically can't do another threat going into Israel again. Now, so Israel is in the top third right now of Gaza. They say that they're almost done actually they've almost completed the main operation. There is a smaller operation. Well, let me not get ahead of myself. They've almost completed, thank you, Tom, the major operation in the north. They now have started invading the south in the last day or two, and they are basically over the next, they said 3 to 4 weeks, maybe 5 weeks, basically from now until January, they are invading the south and going to do the same thing in the south they did in the north in terms of trying to find all the Hamas guys, kill them, get rid of their weapons, and take them out of power. Now, the U.S. is worried because the U.S. is worried about a couple things. One, final point here. A, Israel's plan, they're almost done with the north, go to the south and do the same thing, right? Knock out Hamas. Then they will have a longer strategy of much more targeted going after Hamas leaders and everything else. That is more, my gut is telling me from reading this, that's more the strategy that I think the U.S. and a lot of people wanted Israel to do, right? Which was not to go and bomb the hell out of Gaza, but to do a much more targeted going after Hamas. So in any case, that's what they're doing next. The problem is the U.S. is very worried that the next step is going to be basically Israel recreating in the south what they did in the north, okay, and killing far too many civilians for comfort. Now, a little more detail on this. Let me get this here. CNN, here's from CNN. CNN reports that the U.S. has warned Israel firmly in, quote, thank you, Cheryl, in hard and direct conversations that the Israeli Defense Forces cannot replicate the kind of devastating tactics it used in the north and must do more to limit civilian casualties. That's very interesting to me. I mean, that's very interesting to me. Thank you. Who is that? Elizabeth. Thank you. I think that's very, the U.S. has been, we could use a mod over on YouTube, by the way. I don't know if anybody's over there today, but folks are asking, and they're right. We need somebody over there. If you guys could jump over there, please, or one of you could jump over there. Somebody's being particularly bad. So it is interesting. Well, go over there and Amanda got him already. Okay. Yeah, I can't add a mod when we're over. Remind me another time. Okay, Amanda, you're there. Good. Okay. Thank you. I wasn't sure if you were there. I always get confused, like who's where. Thank you for that. So the U.S. Sorry. I don't. Yeah, we had like crazy people. We had a number of crazy people over on YouTube. They're gone now. So the issue is, I got a couple actually Israel stories that aren't great here. The U.S. is pushing much more harshly against Israel, which is interesting. Thank you, Carla. Carla, was it Carla Carlos? Oh, Carla Carosi. The U.S. is pushing them much harder than they were before, which is very interesting. A little bit more here. Oh, and then here's even more. Again, look at the sort of 1-2 punch that's going on here of the U.S. pushing Israel harder. Then you get the State Department, okay? The State Department. The Israeli government needs to allow more humanitarian assistance into Gaza. Thank you, Alex, says State Department spokesman Matt Miller today. We don't think Israel is doing enough, he said at a briefing. We think they need to do more to allow humanitarian assistance in. There is not enough fuel, there's not enough food, there's not enough water getting in. That's really interesting again, because you've got two different instances of the U.S. kind of ramping up its rhetoric against Israel, saying, we don't like what you're doing, and basically not just criticizing what they're doing, but saying we know you can do more. We think you can do more to not hurt as many civilians or kill as many civilians. We think you can do more to basically put the to get more food and everything else coming in, the humanitarian supplies. where this leads will be interesting, but it means Biden's frustration with Israel is increasing, and he's feeling the need to actually let that be known publicly. And at the same time, Kamala Harris, our vice president, came out this weekend and gave a much more critical assessment of how Israel was doing as well with the civilians. So there's clearly a strategy now from the Biden administration to be more critical of Israel, but at the same time to say we still support you and we support your goal, which Harris said this weekend, we support your goal of taking out Hamas. So that's still part of U.S. policy, but it's interesting to me that things are getting a little harsher, which is interesting. Now, there was also a really awful statement today. Again, I do try to be fair here. So we've got a few bad Israel stories today. There was a really horrific story from a comment really from the Israeli military spokesman yesterday. And he tried to clarify today, and he did not do a good job. So this is this guy, what's his name? Last name, Conricus, Jonathan Conricus. He's good. He's the a little bit older. He's not the young guy with the beard. He's the little bit older military guy. I mean, older. He looks like he's 40 or something. And he said something yesterday that was really bad. And then he tried to clarify, and it was still very bad. This is an Israeli military spokesman. Let me just read this to you. This is, I think, from CNN. Monday, he was responding to a report that an Israeli official claimed that in terms of the current number of deaths in Gaza, an Israeli official claimed, but no one's been able to verify this, that for every 2 civilians killed, 1 Hamas terrorist has been killed in the fighting. So depending, and the figure thrown out was 5,000 Hamas terrorists were killed, which would be an admission that 10,000 civilians have been killed, right? Because what the Israeli official said was for every 2 civilians killed, 1 Hamas has been killed, and said it's been about 5,000 Hamas. So 10,000 civilians. That sounds pretty bad, right? I mean, 5,000 Hamas, yay. 10,000 civilians, bad. The Israeli military spokesman said that's a tremendously positive ratio. Now, and that caused a lot of problems. I watched his actual interview. The actual interview is only slightly more nuanced. What he said was, but the problem is the other experts are saying what he said isn't true. What he said was, urban warfare is very dangerous. We know this. Urban warfare, civilians die, right? We know, and a lot of troops do too. Meaning when you are fighting in cities and going door to door in a city, it is very dangerous for troops, and it's very dangerous for any civilians staying there. So that's true. He claims that 2 civilians dying for every 1 soldier, Hamas, is a really good number for urban warfare. That in urban warfare, it's usually much worse than that. I was just watching a general, I think former general on CNN, who said that's not true. that's not a good number, and what he said was horrific. He tried to sort of clarify today, and honestly, I think his clarification was really bad. Thank you, Blue Ariel. This was a really bad statement. It's a really bad statement. I don't get what he was thinking, and the concern is that this is what Israel's top people are thinking, and that they think it's okay. I mean, a couple things here. Even if he were correct, and again, the military experts will tell you it's not clear that he's correct at all, meaning 2 civilians to 1 soldier getting killed in an urban warfare is not necessarily a positive outcome, right? That's the first thing. But also, even if he were correct that in general, these numbers are really good, right? That basically in urban warfare, oh no, it's usually way more civilians get killed or something, right? Maybe. You don't present it when somebody says 10,000 Palestinians die and 5,000 Hamas. You don't present, hey, the 10,000 Palestinians dying is a really good number. You just don't say that. I mean, the only reason you would, let's face it, right? Your gut response, even if you're supporting Israel, and even if you don't like Israel, your gut response, if you're supporting Israel, is going to be to say any civilian death is a tragedy, right? I mean, you talk like that. You don't go, no, that's a good number, 10,000 civilians dying. That's just crazy talk. And it's worrisome because it does make you wonder if that's what some of these leaders think. I mean, again, I'm pretty supportive of Israel, but that's really crazy talk. And they better not be people thinking that those numbers are somehow good. You know what I mean? Now, you may not be able to, it may be difficult to avoid civilian casualties because Hamas is hiding among civilians. That's very true. But you still don't respond to those death numbers and say, that's really positive. It's not really positive. Even if you can't avoid it, which is questionable, it's not really positive. Anyway, just throwing it out there because it was a really big screw up by the Israelis yesterday, and they're frankly still. I'm really surprised actually. The Israelis have been really screwing up their. I'm not on a learning curve here, Maeve. Like we've talked about, there is a long history here of Israel and the Palestinians both doing bad things to each other. The Palestinians have had 75 years of horrific terrorism against civilians. You can Google it and learn all about it. And the Israelis have had 75 years of sometimes being kind of obnoxious themselves, especially the last 20 years. Their right-wing governments have been horrible. West Bank, settlers killing Palestinians, etc. So don't give me this. I told you, I will not tolerate folks who come and try to play the simplistic game of politics with me. Not going to accept that. But I am going to be fair. And if Israel's doing bad things, I'm going to talk about it. And I think that quote about killing civilians is really bad. So, all right, more. Beep, beep, beep. Oh, so some Israeli hostages that were released by Hamas are saying that they were given antidepressants or anti-anxiety medicine, actually, to try to sort of calm them down. Thank you, Swan, to calm them down and make them more happy when they met the press right after they were released, because Hamas apparently wanted them to not look scared, because Hamas was interested in the public relations, and they gave them clonazepam, which is the generic, we call it here. In Israel, they call it Clonex. Klonopin is also another name, depending in Europe. I know you guys use different names than we do for a lot of these drugs, but basically it's an anti-anxiety drug. And supposedly the hostages are saying they were given this by Hamas when they were being released to try to make them like happy and not look scared and stuff. Netanyahu. So Netanyahu said something here too. Netanyahu said today that the Israeli Defense Forces should retain control for the disarmament of Gaza after the war, rejected the idea that an international force could be responsible for security. Now, specifically, thank you, Scott, what he meant was, from what I was reading, that Israel, and on this one, and it's not an antidepressant, it's anti-anxiety. I corrected myself, Vlaret, you are correct. Israel has said, and I think they're right, that Hamas cannot run Gaza. And Israel, and I think they're right, I think Gaza and frankly the West Bank as well have got to be demilitarized. I think they should be free, right? The Palestinians, it's about time we established a Palestinian homeland, right? But demilitarized, yeah, because of what we just saw with Gaza right now, but what we've seen previously. This ain't going to work if Israel has a military power on its border that occasionally elects terrorists to take over. That's not going to happen. The problem is, how do you demilitarize them and how do you ensure they stay demilitarized? Netanyahu said today that basically, and this is a little weird though, what he meant. I mean, we have to see what he meant, but he basically said that Israel is going to have to make sure it stays demilitarized or disarmed, Gaza, and an international force wouldn't be the one to do it. Now, the problem is, does he mean getting rid of the weapons, which means disarming Hamas and the other terrorists, or does he mean keeping it disarmed, right? Because that's a different thing. Right? I mean, taking out Hamas, I'm not surprised if Israel does it. But in terms of making sure that Gaza never rearms again, does that mean that Israel's going to stay occupying forever? Right? Or so there's a little more explaining here, but I think it worried people a little because it sounded a little like occupation time. Having said that, and this is something I've also said, folks, this is very complicated. It's nice for folks to say ceasefire now. Well, that's great. But how does a ceasefire help Israel? How does a ceasefire stop Hamas from invading again and killing another 1,200 civilians? Well, some were military, most were civilians. How does that ceasefire doesn't stop that from happening? Ceasefire simply makes it so Hamas can do it again in 2 months. So you got to figure out how you take out Hamas, how you remove them from power, how you take away their weapons. And by the way, there's like 3 other terrorist groups, at least in Gaza, in addition to Palestinian terrorist groups, in addition to Hamas. So how do you take out those terrorist groups and ensure they don't come back without Israel occupying? You need to come out with that solution. And simply saying a ceasefire doesn't answer the question. And it's something I'm going to keep, and I'm not sure what the answer is, but it's one of those things because I studied this stuff at graduate school at Georgetown and have been working on foreign policy like for a living. You've got to figure out actual solutions to problems. You can't just come out with feel-good solutions like stop fighting. Well, stop fighting doesn't really work if one guy keeps attacking the other. All right, a little bit more here. U.S. military airlifted another 36,000 pounds of critical supplies to Gaza on Tuesday. Secretary Blinken announced a new policy on Tuesday, which would be today, of preventing extremist Israeli settlers responsible for violence in the West Bank from coming to the U.S., which is good. And a California state Christmas tree lighting ceremony has been canceled and will now happen virtually because of pro-Palestinian protesters. I raise this because this is another example. I talk a lot about how I think Israel has been doing a terrible job of messaging on this war, and the pro-Palestinian side has been doing quite well, but they're slipping. They're beginning to jump the shark a little bit. And we saw it in the last few days where they protested a Jewish restaurant in Philadelphia, and really, I mean, that caused national news, going after them, claiming they were supporting the Israeli military. They lied. And I mean, this nasty crowd yelling outside this restaurant, Goldie, you support genocide. This woman, it's really bad. The second thing is they have been protesting Christmas tree lightings. They did it in New York. They protested. They wanted to shut down the lighting of the Christmas tree at Rockefeller Center, which is the most famous thing in New York for Christmas. Then they tried to do it in Washington, D.C. when Biden was lighting up the Christmas tree. Now, apparently, they were planning to do it in California. And I will tell you this. The idea of shutting down Christmas is a really dumb idea. You're not winning over anybody by shutting down Christmas. And I will especially say when you are an Arab group and most Americans, for example, think you're Muslim, even though you're not Muslim. A lot of Palestinians are actually Christian, but nonetheless, in Americans' minds, right, Palestinians are Arabs, they're Muslims. If people think you're Muslim and they think you're shutting down Christmas, that's a really freaking stupid idea. Because it makes you look like you're anti-Christian and it makes you look like you're launching a war on Christmas. And for those of you in Europe and the rest of the world, those phrases may not mean anything to you. In America, the right wing has been pushing this notion forever that Democrats and the left have launched a war on Christmas. Every freaking year they do this. They say war on Christmas. And it's because Democrats hate America and they hate Christians and they hate Christmas. And you are literally falling into that trap by doing this. It is stupid as hell. And I'm just saying, like I said, it's, I do this stuff for a living. Shutting down Christmas is probably the dumbest effing idea that I've ever heard anybody come up with. If you want to seem like extremists and you want to seem like you're anti-Christian, good job. So very bad. But in any case, they've been shutting down. They've been trying to shut down Christmas tree lighting ceremonies. And now for the third one in California, the state actually had to cancel the ceremony and do it virtually instead. It's an annual tradition to light the Christmas tree, and the state's not doing it now in terms of a ceremony they normally have because the Palestinian groups or their supporters have been threatening to shut down the ceremonies. Just really freaking stupid. And they went after the Thanksgiving Day parade as well. And shut that down. I mean, I just tell you, this is actually, I mean, this is an interesting thing. I almost wanted to write about this at some point. This is a problem the left has overall. There is a faction of the left, and frankly, it's the faction that's getting more powerful in democratic politics, and it is the faction that's protesting protesting the Gaza stuff. There's a faction on the left that believes that any protest that makes you uncomfortable is successful. And literally, it's this, I don't know, it's this critical theory thing or whatever it is that, and they say, if you feel uncomfortable, you're actually thinking about it or some kind of crazy thing. And my theory, because I've done political activism for 30 years on gay rights and other stuff, you don't really want to piss people off. Pissing them off is not your goal. Your goal is to convince them. Maybe it's to make them think about it. Maybe it's to make them learn, but you're not actually trying to piss off people that you're trying to win over, right? Ruining their holiday does not win them over. It just doesn't. But there is a faction on the left, and it tends to be an extreme faction on the left, but it's growing, and it is the faction that is taking over the Palestinian protests, that believes that pissing people off is the goal. And I would say the climate thing too. Those kids that keep doing the goofy shit with all the artwork and everything and all the galleries, they think somehow this is effective in getting people to think about climate change. I support, obviously, I believe climate change is real and we need to do something serious about it. Those kids just piss me off, and they make me think that these guys don't know what they're doing. They're jokers. They're not serious. They don't know the issue. It's not winning. Anyway, bottom line with this, and this is, again, my lesson of advocacy, because you can Google me. I've done probably better, more successful advocacy than anybody who's watching here. Unless you've all influenced the president of the United States, then maybe you've done as much as I have. Thank you, Timid. But you need to come up, if you're ever doing advocacy, you need to come up with a plan. And your plan had better explain why what you're doing will work. Right? So if you're doing a protest, if you're shutting down Christmas protests, you need to explain to me, okay, why will shutting down Christmas protests help Palestine? Why will it hurt Israel? Why will it help shut down aid to Israel? And if you can't explain that to me, then your protest isn't working. But I would challenge any of you out there to give me a good answer as to how shutting down Christmas tree lightings will help convince legislators not to support Israel, will help to convince legislators to call for a ceasefire. I don't think so. But again, explain it. BLM's the same thing. Well, BLM is interesting. BLM's interesting. BLM also jumped the shark to a degree. BLM was very effective at the beginning. Then when you had people rioting and smashing and looting around the country, not exactly helpful. That set the movement back incredibly. And it's something that, we're not supposed to talk about. I'm happy to talk about it, right? So I think there was the majority of BLM did peaceful protests. Black Lives Matter we're talking about. They did peaceful protests. The peaceful protests were very good, right? You had people peacefully marching. That's great, right? Showing people that you're serious and all of this. Going and looting and breaking into stores tells people you're a bunch of fucking animals. I mean, that's just stupid, right? Thank you, Ava. That's just dumb. But that was a small percentage, but it was a small percentage that we had them go through our neighborhood. Thank you, Chazak. They went through and they smashed the window on a grocery store. They smashed the window on one of my neighbor's doors because he's got a door on the street. I mean, smashed at 3 a.m. They came by with a sledgehammer and smashed this guy's door. He was freaked out. So anyway, my point is, like I said, anything you ever plan on doing protest wise, always think about, how does what I'm doing achieve my goal? Don't just say, oh, this is funny. People will cover it. It'll get publicity. You may not be helping the cause. Thank you, Jonathan. All right, real quick, and we'll do questions. I will show you 3 items. We've got our auctions ending tomorrow. This is a big deal because flooding the tunnels. Let's talk about that in a second, actually. I saw a report on that today, Troy. Remind me in a second to talk about flooding the tunnels. We've got big auctions ending tomorrow. I raise money for Ukraine by auctioning really cool stuff we get from Ukraine. We do it on Discord. It's discord.aravosis.com. You can go to Discord and just search for it, Aravosis, if you want as well. And we auction off cool stuff from Ukraine. Half of the money I send back to Ukraine for our charity. This week, maybe we'll use it. We probably will use it for the kids auction or for the hospice. The other half supports my work because I do this full time. And in order to be able to afford to do this, I have to pay the bills. So that helps. So any case, what we do is the auctions tomorrow. What I did was, because we're getting close to Christmas, I intentionally put about 15 auction items up this week, the most I've ever done, so that there's a lot of cool stuff that could be potential Christmas gifts. The issue is, for the US, there is time to mail these by Christmas. For the rest of the world, I'm not convinced. Canada, maybe. Right? Europe, it usually takes 2 weeks, and that's not even Christmas. So just be aware of that. But I've got some cool stuff. I will show you a couple. The number one thing that everybody loves, this is a really neat used shell from Ukraine. Thank you, Rockin. This is from Bakhmut, where big battles were going on. It's Russian. And the Ukrainians took it and made what's called trench art out of it. They carved an angel and the Ukrainian trident out of it. Show you guys close up. I love this piece. It's so cool and just so beautiful. Thank you, Bob West and Montserrat. So this is the one piece everyone loves, and it's nice because it stands up on its own. That's one. Another one that's doing very well is a challenge. I'm only going to show you 3 because I've got 15. A challenge coin that I've got, and this is the Russian warship Go F Yourself coin, which is based on the stamp, and it shows a Ukrainian soldier flipping his middle finger, thank you, Beaches, to the Russian ship, the Moskva. The Moskva is the Russian ship that told the Ukrainian troops, surrender or we're going to kill you. And the Ukrainian troops responded, Russian warship, go F yourself. And then 6 weeks later, the Ukrainians sank the ship. So this is literally a stamp the Ukrainians made, and this is a copy of the stamp made into a challenge coin. It's very cool. So we're auctioning this. And then finally, there's 15. I'm only going to show you 3. Finally is a Ukrainian military camouflage net. How cool is this? I love this stuff. This is very neat. We have been raising money, among other things, to make camouflage nets for the Ukrainian military. These are the nets that they throw over trucks, tanks, anything, right? That they're trying to hide from bombers, from drones, anything looking down. And the funny thing is, I'm going to see if I have my picture ready. It looks like leaves when you look at it from above. And I don't know if I've got it handy. I had a picture, actually, let me look. The picture is in my Discord. I took a picture in my mom's yard because I wanted sunlight on it, and I had no idea this picture was going to be this good. Hold on. This cracks me up. So, well, here, you can see it on mom's carpet, and then look at the picture to the left of it. That's in her yard. Look at how well this thing blends in her yard of the top. It blew my mind, if you guys can tell. But you can see it, but at the same time, it really blends in with the yard. So that's how good of a camouflage. And the very cool thing is it comes with a little heart that some Ukrainian kids made, and the little heart is what they make for all of the camouflage nets, because they basically write little notes to the soldiers they make the nets for. And this one says, like, long live the ZSU, which is the Ukrainian military, Slava Ukraini, like what's that? Glory to Ukraine, Heroam Slava, glory to the heroes. And then I guess I think it's supposed to be a dove of peace holding a branch, but it looks like a little chicken of peace. It's very cute, holding a little olive branch. Look at this. It's like a chicken of peace, which is really cute. The auctions are over on Discord. It's discord.aravosis.com in your web browser. Or if you have Discord, or you can download the app, do a search for Aravosis, my last name. Okay? But check it out. It's very cool. And like I said, I've got like 15 things there. They all end tomorrow, different times tomorrow. As I said, I think it's a lot of fun stuff for Christmas, to be honest. So flooding the tunnels, I forgot to mention this. We were, the other day, folks were asking, why is it Israel isn't flooding the tunnels? Now, we know Hamas has, like, what did they say, 300 kilometers of tunnels, something crazy, 200 miles of tunnels underneath Gaza. And they've been living there. They've got, the news already went in there, running toilets, air conditioning. I mean, like, it's electricity. I mean, they've got like a town underneath the town, so that they're hiding underground so the Israelis can't find them, and hiding under civilian areas in their tunnels. Well, somebody raised the question, why doesn't Israel just like flood it with 300 miles, even more so? Why doesn't Israel flood it with seawater? And it's actually an obvious answer that I didn't think of, and I heard about it on the news this morning. I thought, okay, that is an obvious answer. You don't want to flood it until you know what's there, right? They don't have all the hostages back. They don't want to kill the hostages. If they flood it and there's hostages there, the hostages die. That's the first problem. Second of all, I think, would like to know if you did or didn't kill the terrorists, right? How many you've killed, how many got out. You possibly get intelligence because of information they've left behind, weapons. I mean, there's a lot of different stuff you can get by going in. The problem is, okay, there. I knew I was close. Thank you, Mango. I know little drones would be interesting. Yeah, little drones would be interesting if they could, Anyway, what else we got, guys? Thank you, Jetta. Please do keep the gifts coming on TikTok. As I said, it helps support my work. And just if anybody's new, I do this show every night, Monday, 6 o'clock Eastern time, US. We talk about the war in Ukraine. We talk about the war in Israel, or the war in Gaza. And then sometimes we talk about other breaking US news like the elections and stuff. So, buffering. Not buffering for me. Anybody else buffering on YouTube? Thank you, Flower Lady. Anybody else buffering on YouTube? The tunnels go into Israel. Oh, very interesting. I knew the tunnels, for example, came up on the beach. Remember, because there was the ones the Israelis actually caught that were trying to come out on the beach. I knew that one, sort of north of Gaza. Okay, weird. Yeah, it didn't show buffering on my end on YouTube. Sorry, guys. So what else we got, guys? What else we got? Hi, I do know the history of Palestine. Thank you. So I will keep talking about it. Thank you, Iman. Thank you for the hat. Who is that with the hat there? Alex, thank you for the hat. What else we got going? What else is going? What else is going? Oh, that's interesting. Magical says CNN reporting the classified Senate briefing on Ukraine breaks down into a shouting match on border security. So basically, the Republicans are demanding that that the Democrats do something, well, not just significant, but do a lot on border security, or they're not going to provide any more aid to Ukraine. The problem is Ukraine aid is getting crucial right now if we don't get this passed in the next couple of weeks, and really putting Ukraine at risk. The problem is, for example, it's one thing mods should be appreciated on YouTube. Yeah, be nice to the mods, guys. Actually, I will say that, like, if you say something to a mod, fine, but that's it. You get one chance and that's all you get. I don't want people criticizing the mods because it's rude. And the job is not easy because we do get a lot of crazy people. So I didn't see what happened, but don't be rude. Thank you, Hedge, for the monkey. What were we saying with so I was forgetting now. We had to go defend the mods. What were we saying here? Beep, 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 beep. Long live the mods. Exactly. Oh, with Ukraine. So the Republicans are demanding the Democrats do something serious about the border with Mexico. The problem is, for example, I think Democrats should do more about the border with Mexico, to be honest. I think Democrats have got Republicans. I said this yesterday, I think. Republicans play games with immigration to the point where they're trying to be basically, they're using racism. They really are. I mean, some Republicans care, of course, about immigration. A lot of them just are being jerks about it because they say, hey, dark people coming across the border, great election issue, right? For example, Fox News. Fox News, before every election, they talk about a migrant caravan coming through Mexico. And then after the election, you never hear about it. By the way, have you noticed how you haven't heard about any migrant caravans? You never do. They literally invent one before the election and then stop talking about it after because they don't actually care. The problem is Democrats do the opposite. Democrats go way too far in not wanting to do anything about immigration. And we've got a ridiculous number of people crossing our border. And frankly, a ridiculous number of amnesty and all those requests as well. It's out of control. It really is. And it kind of drives me nuts that Democrats are so afraid to say it. But again, you've got a large constituency that wants amnesty and everything else. Now, I'm not saying that's a bad idea. Because one thing I'll say in immigration, I'm going to get a whole immigration discussion here, but one thing is Americans should learn from the European experience. Thank you, Adventures. Actually, Americans should learn from the American experience as well. When you take a lot of people into your country from somewhere else and then treat them as second-class citizens, thank you, Marcy, what do you think happens to them, right? The Europeans have had this problem. The French have had it with Arabs, people from the Middle East. Other countries have had problems with people they've had to treat them as second-class citizens. In America, what did we do? We forced black people into the country, not blacks, but forced Africans, because some black people came from countries that were free, but or came on their own free will. But we forced Africans into this country as slaves, and then what did we do? We treated them like shit for 300 years, right? Or however many years. And guess what? Then they don't assimilate. Then they end up being poorer. I mean, you end up having all sorts of problems because you're not basically welcoming everybody into the country. And that's a problem with immigration as well. We've got so many Latinos who cross the border illegally, and it bothers the hell out of me. But do we really? They're here. They're not going away. Do we want to create an underclass yet again of people who aren't quite welcome and are discriminated against, and it just creates another underclass? Or do we say, okay, if you're here, what do? We're not getting it. It's like Israel, to be honest. They're not going away, guys, right? So we might as well accept it. But should we be having this many more people cross the border? Of course not. It's ridiculous, the number of people that cross the border, right? It's absolutely ridiculous. But in any case, what the Republicans wanted to do is I read this today, they wanted to pass a provision in law that says the president can basically stop all amnesty. Is it amnesty the word I'm looking for? thank you, Pam, all like, not amnesty claims, all refugee claims. The president can just stop all refugee claims if he wants to, and just stop them. Like nobody else can come in as a refugee, right? Political refugee or anything else. Asylum. Thank you. Asylum's the word. I knew the word A was what I was looking for. Asylum claims, that the president can just stop it. Well, they want the law passed because a Democrat is never going to stop all asylum claims. A Trump Republican will. And they wanted to pass this in the hopes that Trump wins next year. And the Democrats are saying, are you out of your mind? We're not going to give the president the power to just stop all asylum claims. That's insane, right? I mean, a basic part of international law and U.S. law has been, if you have a legitimate claim to political asylum, you are political, not economic, you're allowed into the country, right? We've always believed in that. And that's one of the big sticking points now. So this whole issue about Ukraine, of course, isn't just Democrats won't do anything about the border. It's, and again, as always, Republicans are going crazy about what they want to do about the border, so Democrats can't agree to it. It's just so freaking annoying. And of course, it's hurting Ukraine. This actually is a Ukraine discussion we were having on that one. It's hurting Ukraine. It's hurting Ukraine. You know? Anyway, how close is Ukraine to getting nukes? Not close at all. Not close at all. They gave up their nukes, which was a really bad idea back in 1994, which was really, I mean, not stupid, but they took our word for it and they shouldn't have. So, you know, it's very sad. Yes. But no, they're not. I don't think they've got they would have to, I'd have to look at it, but they would have to refine the plutonium, which means people would know, right? And if the Russians found out, by the way, if the Russians found out that Ukraine were building a bomb, I think the Russians would nuke them. I really do. I think they would nuke them if they found out. I mean, that would be bad. Having said that, if I could snap my fingers and Ukraine could have the bomb, yes, I would do it, because then it would stop the Russians from doing everything they're doing. Do they still have nuclear scientists? I'm sure they must have some, right? Unless the Russians have killed them all. You'd think they must have some. It's expensive to maintain nukes. Well, also, at least initially, the Ukrainians wouldn't have been able to actually fire the nukes that they had, but I still think in a couple of years they would have figured it out. You know, they have like 4 or 5 nuclear power plants, actually. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, figures. Okay. Mustard says that nuclear scientists work on the power plants now. Okay. Figures. Right. Where else would you go? Right. You know, it's too hard, Sword for Justice. You're saying send each of the kids in the hospice a chocolate orange in their gifts. I mean, why a chocolate orange, but also it's too hard. You know what I mean? Like, it's the Ukrainians are going to figure out kind of what they can give them and buy them in bulk and then get them there. I'm less worried about the exact detail of what gift we give them and what sweet we give them, you know what I mean? Than just kind of having the Ukrainian. I mean, maybe, but it's too hard to figure out. That kind of micromanagement, I'd rather leave for the Ukrainians, is my point on that one. Nice idea, but you know what I mean? It just gets too hard. Typically, that's what we've been best at, has been sort of raising money here, and then the Ukrainians put it in place. Now, just to remind folks, we have a fundraiser we're doing for a children's hospice in Ukraine. 100% of the money will go to the hospice. We're trying to raise money to get Christmas gifts for like 200 kids in this hospice, terminally ill kids. We'll get them toy, we'll get them candy of some kind, a sweet of some kind, and then we're trying to help the hospice. The hospice wants an exercise bike for the kids, costing $300. So we're going to try to get them the exercise bike too. If we are able to pull this off, we need $3,000 to do it. If you guys can help, I'd appreciate it. I will pull up Vlad's info again for you guys here. We're sending it via my friend Vlad in Ukraine, who we do all of our fundraising through. That's Vlad's information for you guys on YouTube and etc. Go to your PayPal and just, you know, enter Vlad's email. For you guys on YouTube, TikTok, go to my profile on TikTok, click the Linktree link, and the very top thing that comes up will be the fundraiser. It gives you Vlad's PayPal information. Naprokovsky@gmail is his Gmail. And just go into your PayPal, type in Vlad's email as the person you're sending it to, and you're done. Okay. So thank you if you can help it. Mental health fundraiser. Don't know. This was the first one Vlad came up with, because we were talking about this on the weekend too. This was the first one we came up with. So this is the one we're doing first. We'll see about the other ones, but we'll try this one for a week and see, you know. Well, that's a good point too, right? You don't know what they're allergic to. They've got to figure out what's best for them, I think. But yeah, I think it'll be neat. If people can help, please do. I mean, 100% of the money will go to helping the kids. So if you can help, like I said, TikTok, go to my profile, click the Linktree link. It'll pull up Vlad's info as a top thing. That's his PayPal info. Go to your PayPal, send it. And for you guys, it's literally the bottom of the screen. You know, we've raised well over $100,000 for Ukraine since the war started. 100% of that going to Ukraine, by the way. I didn't take any of that. So if you would, please help. Like I said, this is one of the fundraisers we like to do where it's literally just for Ukraine. So thank you very much. What else we got, guys? Pretty soon I'm going to go and then have dinner with Ma. We've got some pasticcio, leftover Greek food that was in the freezer. We're helping Ukrainian children in a children's hospice in Ukraine, terminally ill kids, getting them Christmas gifts and sweets, and helping buy an exercise bike for the hospice for the children themselves. Thank you, Flower Lady. You're always very generous. Thank you. So yes, we're trying to help them out. So welcome, guys. Anybody who's new, where's Ukraine on the map again? Very funny. Welcome anybody who's new. This is my nightly show where we talk about the war in Ukraine, Israel and Gaza too lately. We're at the part of the show where we hang out and we talk. Thank you, Frank. We talk, take your guys' questions, or we just shoot the bull a little bit. Maybe I can show you another little, somebody's asking how the Christmas lights. I can show you another, let me see. See, I'm trying to find like one of the good videos from last night. Let me pull this up. We saw some local Christmas lights that were really neat in the Chicago suburbs where they do such a good job. I mean, it's a ridiculous, yep. No, it's actually hard to get a full sense of actually, this one's not bad. It's hard to get a full sense of just how nice the Christmas lights are and how deep they go. It's this entire park. It's like a city block. Oh, I see a question there. I'll come to a second. It's this entire city block of lights. Show you guys really quick as well. But it goes back a block. It's just stunning. I mean, the entire park, and it's Christmas music, and it's just really cool. Here we go. Question. Oh, Daniel. You know what's funny? I thought it was you. I saw the orange color and I thought, Daniel, super sticker. It's been a long time since you've asked a question. You could always ask a question or make a comment. You've always had insightful backgrounds on these things. Good to see you. I mean, I do see you on Discord all the time. So although I don't think we're on the same, do you talk in the car chat? You may be one of those that talks in the car chat. I never stay on that. I do get burned out. Yeah. People ask you to get burned out. You know, it's weird. I think it's more just sort of cumulative politics burnout occasionally, which happens. I mean, you know, knock on wood, I've been able to keep doing it all these years, but it's hard though. You deal with bad issues all the time. And it's, you know, your whole life is dealing with civil rights abuses and war and, you know, because politics is very rarely about good stuff. Nobody, you know, right? The news isn't about good stuff usually. It's bad stuff, you know. This man did talk about Palestine. Half of the show was about Palestine. Well, we do know about this. Kelly's mentioning the Poroshenko, the former president of Ukraine, reaching out to Orban for a meeting. The thing is, we don't know what it was about. The Ukrainians killed the meeting. The Ukrainians said, The former president was trying to cross the border to go have a secret meeting with Orban, the president, prime minister of Hungary, and we don't know why. And the Ukrainians found out and said, "Don't you dare!" Right? So it's not really clear. Yeah, we just don't know. We don't know. Yep. What else? What else? What will happen to Ukraine if the assistance from the U.S. ends? They're going to lose. I think they're going to lose to Russia. I mean, they're going to really lose to Russia. The problem is Russia could even potentially overrun them over time as well. I mean, it's right now Russia's not in a good position, meaning Russia's expended a lot of men, a lot of equipment. So it's not clear Russia can make some blitzkrieg across Ukraine, right, to get a lot of land. Ukraine also can't do that, right? But over time, Russia is going to be getting more men. Putin says he wants 170,000 more men. They're going to start building up their weapons again. They're making more drones. So all of a sudden, Russia, will it take a year? We'll get to the point where they can maybe do some big blitz and take even more of Ukraine. So that is one big problem of us not helping Ukraine further. And the U.S. is half of Ukraine's aid. Half the aid comes from Europe, half the aid comes from Ukraine, or half the aid comes from the US. So very bad, very bad. Yeah. That's interesting, Ira. Is that what you think is going on? Internal power struggle between Zelensky and Poroshenko? Maybe, because it was really weird that he's kind of doing it without, without like 20% of whose population? I don't know who you're talking about, Ace. I saw your question, but I didn't know what you're talking about. So, a co-host. Who am I going to co-host? It's hard to find somebody who's willing to like do this every day. You know what I mean? Who am I going to get? I can't pay them. Sorry, somebody said, could I get a co-host? There's no one to get. I've been wanting to get, I have done guests before. I've got to get guests to come again because I do enjoy doing that. That's always fun. I look lonesome. That's why I have a dog. She's underneath the table beneath me. I have a dog but there's no one to co-host with. I mean, what do you do? But guests, yes. I've been wanting to get more guests again. It's been a while since we've had a guest. Yeah, my news girl under the desk, exactly. I think Ukraine is about to be let down by us, quite likely. First of all, we already let Ukraine down. I mean, I've talked about this before. Biden never wanted Ukraine to win. Biden wanted Ukraine to tie. That was it from the beginning, He was afraid Ukraine was going to take back Crimea and Putin would flip out. Mom, that's true, though. That would be pretty funny. And Putin would flip out. So we made sure we gave Ukraine just enough weapons to defend themselves, but not win. And what happened? Ukraine has been able to stop Russia's advance, get some of its territory back in the north, but not the territory in the east. And now they're stuck because we went slow on giving them weapons. We didn't give them the good weapons right away. When we started giving them the good weapons, we drew it out, like we draw it. It was drawn out very slowly. We still haven't given them the F-16s. The tanks didn't come until a year and a half into the war that we got them the damn tanks. No, the weapons, we finally gave them ATACMS missiles they've been wanting forever, and all the experts say they need. We surprised everybody. We gave them the short-range missiles, not the long-range missiles they need. Surprise, right? So even now, we gave them, and, okay, not only did we not give them the ATACMS they need, we gave them the short ones. And by the way, short versus long matters because guess what? Long helps you hit Russian supply depots. Long helps you hit the Russian highways, right? Long helps you hit the Russian barracks. Short does not. Right? So the distance matters. We also only gave them like 20. It looks like we gave them 20 ATACMS and that was it. You haven't heard about Ukraine using our missiles since a couple months ago because it looks like we haven't given them any more. I mean, we don't want Ukraine to win, guys. I've been saying this for 2 years. Biden does not want Ukraine to win. He's afraid of Putin. No, I like Biden. I think Biden's done a good job on this, but he's literally afraid of Putin, and Putin got in his head and scared him. There's going to be a nuclear war if Putin loses. Give me a break. Why would there be a nuclear war if Putin loses? I mean, like, why? Right? The house explosion. There was an insane house explosion in Washington, D.C. in the suburbs last night. Somebody happened to be filming it, some crazy guy. Google it. The video is insane, absolutely insane. Azerbaijan and Armenia, sure, I mention it occasionally. I don't know if is anything going on like right now? I know, in the last maybe a month ago, things were getting more heated. I know we're a little bit afraid of Azerbaijan invading Armenia, but I didn't see. Ukraine's working on their long-range missile. Good. They keep working on drones, which is good. Thank you, Jedamom. Right? I mean, that's all good. But, stop with the Democrat versus Republican thing. I mean, Republicans were in Vietnam as well. Nixon and Kissinger. How did Nixon and Kissinger do in Vietnam and Asia, right? Southeast Asia. Not so good. Democrats, not so good either, right? I mean, Republicans got us into Iraq and Afghanistan. How did those do for you? I mean, I'm not going to play the political game, but don't you play somebody's playing the little political game on TikTok. Oh, Democratic wars. Well, Afghanistan and Iraq were Republican wars. Didn't end so well, did they? So wars are never good, but wars can be necessary. That's different. There is, that's an important point, though. Wars can be necessary. And I don't like when people sort of say that, all war is bad, don't do it. Well, no. World War II, we didn't have a choice. We had to do World War II. And Ukraine has to fight its war. They don't have a choice. and we should help them. I wish they didn't have to, but right, they got attacked. They've got to defend themselves. So, my beef with the UN, I worked there. That's my beef with the UN. It's a long story, but they're corrupt as hell and they're lazy as hell. They make a ton of money. It's all about making money. They're corrupt and they're literally the most corrupt organization I've ever worked at in my entire life. Horrific. So no more. I'm not talking more about the UN tonight, but that's why I do not like the UN, because I literally worked there and left. Yep, the United Nations, because they're so horrible. That's why. That's why. What else, guys? I'm going to quit soon, by the way. Thank you, Red. It's 6:20, so I'm going to get going soon. I don't know what your question is, EMI, but I'm not sure. Palestine has no weapons. Tell that to 1,200 dead people in Israel on October 7th. That's not true. Tell that to scores of dead people around the world the last 75 years killed by Palestinian terrorists. So no. Palestinians have weapons and the Israelis have weapons, and both have done bad things with their weapons over time. So I'm never going to give in on that point. But I am going to be one of the few people who tells you both sides have done bad things. So, how many years can Russia carry on with the war? It's hard to say. One of the things I was gonna mention tonight, and I didn't, but there have been like more protest, like they're angry, but they're not allowed to protest because it's Russia. But these wives of military guys, they formed a group, Russian military, servicemen. The wives formed a group of like 23,000 of them or something, and they're getting more and more pissed off, and they're demanding their husbands be sent home because they've been at war for 2 years and the Russians aren't giving them breaks and they can't come home. So the wives are getting pissed off. What's interesting about that is, this is a lot of what happened with Afghanistan. Now, Afghanistan was 10 years and a lot fewer deaths for the Russians, but the Russians invaded Afghanistan in the 1980s, tried to take over. We helped fund the other guys. The Russians lost. And it was the families of the dead servicemen, the moms, I think, who really organized and helped bring down the Russian government, the Soviet government in many ways. So it's very interesting when you get sort of the wives stepping in and organizing against the government. It's very interesting because also it's difficult, even in a quasi dictatorship like Russia, it's difficult to take on the wives of soldiers, right? Especially if they've been killed or injured, even more so, because, they're the heroes, right? And their husbands are the heroes and the wives are the dutiful wives. It's this kind of thing, right? So, but that's interesting, actually. Yeah. He seems exhausted. Who's that? Oh, Zelensky, you mean? The wife, maybe? Oh, okay. Oh, I see. You guys are, sorry, they're having a discussion over on YouTube about whether Mrs. Zelensky doesn't want President Zelensky to run again. I'm sure he is exhausted. It's got to be. I mean, the job is exhausting anyway, but imagine being a president during wartime and worrying about he's got kids or kid at least. I don't know, does he have kids or one kid? I think he's got one kid. That you're worried about their lives. You're worried about your wife's life. I mean, you're worried about your own life. You're worried about your country's survival, which is even more stressful than just the economy if you were at peace, right? It's very, that's interesting. W.C. Fields is saying 1917, the women started the revolution. Okay, I did not know that. Late 1980s, the same thing. Two kids. Okay, two kids. So, EMI, learn how to be polite. The mods are about to teach you a little lesson. Angel's about to get their wings. Polite. It is dinner time. All right, guys. Callum's right. It's dinner time. I'm going inside. Thank you for joining us, guys. I will join you tomorrow. Today's Tuesday, so Wednesday. I will be joining you tomorrow night as well. So next Monday, I'm flying to Arizona, so I will not be doing a show on Monday. Going to be in Arizona for the week. I will be doing shows throughout the week, but I've got to figure out what's going on with the family. Who knows? I may be doing earlier shows, later shows. I don't know. It's only one time difference from where I am right now, but I don't know when I'm free because dinner time might be seeing family. So we'll see. And Friday, I may not do a show Friday either because Friday I may have to go downtown to Chicago. I think I do have to go downtown to Chicago on Friday for some work stuff. So let's see. There's a chance Friday might not work out. Or you know what? Friday might be a hangout. We've done it before. We have sort of a Q&A hangout. We can always do that on Friday potentially. Let's do that. But Friday, let's probably do that. If I'm home in time on Friday, we can at least do a hangout. I just like to, the thing is, I like to take several hours and actually really dip myself in the news on Ukraine and Israel before the show. And if I don't do that, I don't like it because then I'm not up on what's going on. You know what I mean? So I don't mind a general Q&A. That works. But I wouldn't be able to do news updates if I'm not here reading all day. So exactly. Yes. Remember, thank you for mentioning MD. Remember, last little pitch, though, we're doing fundraisers for Ukrainian kids. Friday night coffee, it might be, or decaf. We're doing a fundraiser for Ukrainian kids in a hospice in Ukraine. It's actually a hospice sort of southeast of Kyiv. And they're terminally ill kids. We're trying to raise $15 per kid for Christmas to get them a gift, to get them a suite of some kind, and to get an exercise bike for the hospice, $300 for an exercise bike. Our goal is to raise $3,000 if we can. We're going to try. But you can give, put it up one last time here at the end. You can give, you guys on YouTube, etc., via Vlad's PayPal address. That's for Vlad's PayPal. And you guys can find Vlad's PayPal in my TikTok in the profile. Go to the Linktree link, click it, and you will come up with a long list of links. Also, you can help me. My PayPal's there and everything else. But the top one will give you Vlad's PayPal. It mentions the kids, and you'll have to go into it doesn't link to anything, though. You'll have to go into your PayPal and send the money to Vlad. 100% goes to the kids. I don't even touch the money. I don't get a dime. Vlad doesn't get a dime. And hopefully we'll get some nice pictures of the kid. I hope we get pictures of the kids. You never know on the privacy thing. No sugar for cancer. Fair enough. Well, the kids are terminal. It doesn't really matter. I mean, these kids are in a hospice. At this point, as far as I'm concerned, if you're in a hospice, if I'm in a hospice, I'm eating brownies 3 times a day. Brownies and chocolate chip cookie and slathering chocolate all over my body. Right? I mean, think about it. Wouldn't you? If you were in a hospice, come on. If you're terminally ill, it's pizza and brownies and chocolate shakes. I'm going to be 300 pounds if I'm in a hospice. So yeah. No. These are terminally ill kids. But I appreciate it. It was a nice sentiment. I appreciate your sentiment, but All right, guys. No recap. I would, but it's already 6:30. It's already an hour and a half. So see you tomorrow. 6 o'clock Eastern time, US. Make sure to follow me on TikTok and YouTube and everything. Thank you for the gifts. Cute little Christmas tree there, Nina. Thank you. And I'll see you guys tomorrow. Okay. All right. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye. Beep, beep, beep. Be nice.